I welcome on behalf of the administration, all people back to my own, but second lecture. The theme for second lecture from my side was main theme being your own, that is socio-economic history of India. Drawing from Asian example is my contribution. Probably you may have known till now only about India. It was probably beaten history of India for you people for last so many sessions. I am now trying to see another country in Asia which had begun most of the developmental process, educational process from the time we were, and where they have gone and reached today, and where we are moving as an emerging economy status further. And the case study of another Asian country, comparable, uncomparable, you conclude later depending on your own level of understanding. But I proudly take
Viresh, mute ಮಾಡಿ sir. Mute ಮಾಡಿ Viresh.
Right? Hello.
Yes sir, audible sir.
It was awkward for me to continue in presence of some administrative issue talking, interrupting. So I resume. The Asian example, since I'm familiar with the case of Japan easily, since also there is in Mysore University a paper on Japan, China, Korea, I thought it is possible for me to easily beat the case of Japan and fit in this lecture the extent to which it is Japan easily more than a necessary level it qualifies to be fit into this according to me. So socio-economic history of India is being done, but not by me alone. Maybe concluding lecture only I gave some of my observation and the current features being experimented in Indian education also, besides in Indian society and economy. Now I take the case of Japan, a very interesting country, a country which began experimenting with modernization very late, a country that had experienced war so badly with a nuclear attack at two places during World War II, and how they were immediately after World War II was over placed, and how we were placed, and where they have reached today, and where we have reached today. The great many changes we are today seeing in Indian economy, in Indian diplomacy, in Indian society, is a grand churning of what went on in Japan also during that period. Only that modern Japan, when we say, like in Indian academics, like in anywhere, in any university in the world, history subject is studied at whatever level, they are classified for reasons of convenience, both for students and for teachers. Like Indian history, we classify ancient, also Japanese history, there is ancient history. And as we classify in India, next stage, medieval Indian history, Japanese also have medieval Japan history. Medieval Japan history is written with feudalism. Feudalism almost came to an end when they approached modern period in 1868. 1868 for them, for us modern is post-World War II, or sometimes adventure of Britishers into India. So that medieval period in Japan is called Tokugawa period, where it was military system that dominated the economy, politics, and even policy making. Society, therefore, was classified there too, unlike in India too. And now, I begin with 1868, which is called period for Japanese modern experiments. They ended feudalism, and most of the former feudal lords became governors in the new administrative setup since 1868. And now, the 1868 period up to 1912 is called Meiji period. Meiji was the emperor. So in emperor's name, the period was launched. And in 1868, Japanese shed total exclusion from the world or total seclusion from the world. You call exclusion or seclusion. It is something where Japan was not part of world history, though they had their own history and society continuing historically. It was not studied as a part of world history because Japanese remained totally cut off from the rest of the world. For everything, they depended only on themselves. If there was some trade carried between, it was with China. So 1868, Japanese government, that is collection of governors who are otherwise military heads of different regions within Japan, they concluded that let us together launch a new period of modernization. Otherwise, threat from outsiders to Japan to be attacked was increasing. That was Americans. American ship, a lot of soldiers, say about 50 exactly 50 soldiers, gunmen. They entered into Japanese shores in 1852. And Japanese realized then the threat that outsiders can approach Japan easily from any direction because it is an island country, all sides water. So it was easy. So the Americans in 1852 when came with the leadership of Commodore Matthew Perry, he just gave a threat saying that, look, you must conclude commercial treaty with us for trading. Otherwise, we are now giving you 1 year time. Next year, we come back and demand you should be prepared to sign the Treaty of Commerce. So the Japanese went on discussing for 1 year whether to open. If we open, what are the advantages? If we stay closed, what are the threats and dangers? And by opening, we come and interact with the modernized Western world. Without opening Japan to others, we remain again secluded with no contact with the world. So a decision was taken after 1 year intense discussion, debates, opinion formation, differences. With all that, finally, in favor of opening Japan to the Western world was decided. And in the 1868, a new emperor signed that agreement. His name was Meiji. Therefore, the period called Meiji Restoration. That is, making policy and decision was authorized to the emperor. That's why Meiji Restoration they call. Earlier, this position was with the emperor. In between, military took over. They took a lot of decisions, only informing the emperor later. Here on, it is the emperor himself, consultation with governors, he decided what the policy should. Now, modernization. What did modernization mean for Japan? Access to Western education system, access to modern means of communication, transportation, meaning laying railway line throughout Japan, bringing entire country under rail network. Communication, telecommunication in particular, telephones were open, made possible to be acquired by ordinary people. Industrialization. Industrialization, earlier Japanese were only traditional industry masters like ink making for painting and embroidery, cloth making with silk cloth, silk dyeing imported from China and processed and textured in Japan. So if you ask industry, it's only, I think, textile industry and ink, that is painting, embroidering, related to textiles. Only these were major ones. Though they had no resources like coal, iron, or all that what we have in India, they had no resources at all. They had to import everything. Then with conclusion with Americans and with China and with other European countries, they did get a new constitution. Draft was also prepared by Prussians, and on the basis of Prussian model, Japanese launched constitution in 1878. And in 1876, railway network was completed. Telecommunication was in place. The first ever university system of education, 1879. That was Tokyo University. It's called Imperial University because the emperor was the head, and during his period, this was launched. Then Kyoto University. Even today, there are 6 imperial universities in Japan, which have acquired in the modern days. That imperial part was removed, but University of Tokyo, University of Kyoto, these names, University of Hiroshima, University of Sapporo, that is Hokkaido. So these names were given. Educationally, modern education system was in place and in completion by 1912. 1912, the Meiji period was over. That was actually the formative period in Japan for modernization. Modernization formally launched in 1878, came to a fully modernized position by 1912. And by that time, German military model was in place. There was a military conscription. That was the imperial order that every able-bodied individual above 15 years must undergo a compulsory training of 3 years and then some pledging of years for military service. So most of the men became soldiers. And in World War I, Japanese were on the side of the victors. So they had access with most of the countries during World War I. And after World War I, they became partners, actually, in the sense that international committees, like for global controlling or provision for security, Germans, England, French, US, they were the major powers. In Asia, there was no. With a acquisition or with in place a great naval system, that was the major of the 3, Army, Air Force, and Navy. Navy Japanese were quite strong during World War I. They lent support through an agreement during World War time to the Westerners to retain some parts of China and some other parts in Southeast Asia. Southeast Asia, for example, today is a region of 10 countries, 10 full, that is ASEAN, Association of Southeast Asian Nations. They are actually bordering India. That is actually Myanmar, what otherwise was Burma. Myanmar, then you have Thailand, then you have Malaysia, then you have Singapore. They are all in geographical map in line that I'm talking about. So Myanmar, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, Philippines, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia. Latest 10th one to join in 1985 was Brunei. With that, all 10 members have become members of Association of Southeast Asian Nations. They focus basically on industries, self-governance, and between them to move to some other country. A part made in country A goes to part B, assembly of consumer goods products. Even electronics and automobiles are heavily dominating today. So this region and northern eastern part of mainland China, that is Dalian, etc., they were under Japanese control after World War I. Because most of them, realizing Japanese naval power and Japanese overall military dominance, they let loose these regions for trade with Japan. However, there are some, what do we call, for example, some regions were let for European countries. Barring that, rest of them were with. Even whole Korea, Japan acquired in 1910 by occupation, set up factories in Korea and sent Japanese managers there and transferred dust industries to Japan, brought the Korean workers. They are also staying today in Japan as minority community, Koreans, non-Japanese foreigners. Though third generation is going on now, they are still Koreans, but not have become nativized Japanese. But they have special treatment by Japanese government. That's one. And 1912, as it ended, Meiji era, immediately after that, 2-3 years, World War I started. Since they were on the victor side, Japanese got a lot of benefits after that. Even there was League of Nations, to which Japan was a member in 1925. 1919, there is a Washington conference held. For that, Japan was invited, meaning recognition at the global level, a country that is from Asia, which was not very modern, which was not very rich, but still has a presence. That is Western recognition of Japanese power, authority, and requirement as a global partner at that level. And 1922, Paris Conference. 1925, launch of League of Nations. 1928, however, brought Great Depression and lot of effect on Japanese economy. And then preparation for World War II. Japanese prepared with wrong decisions. They bombarded Pearl Harbor, and Americans in return nuclear bombed with B-52 on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. These are the two major industrial area, and we call Western Japan Naval Power Headquarters that was located in Hiroshima. And also, since Navy Japanese were strong, headquarters was in Hiroshima, and decision-making for war was also made in Hiroshima officers. So that was one of the targets for the Americans to place the nuclear bomb there. And Nagasaki being further down, it is in Kyushu Island, one of the borders for Japanese to the Pacific Ocean. And immediately after that, few 100 kilometers, South Korea now, otherwise Korea integrated then. And Japanese occupied Korea in 1910. They had Anglo-Japanese Treaty in 1902, which was extended in 1912. So post-World War I scenario, military history of Japan, if you can basically, even all industry, it was military. And the feudal features that Japanese society had, even during modernizing period, post-Meiji period of 1968, they continued. That is, society was divided. Samurais, the military men, they were top class. Like in Indian society also had 4 divisions and maybe 5th one outskirts. So like that, then they have farmers, they had artisans, they had merchants. Merchants were the last ones, though they were rich. Why? Touching money is bad in Japanese context. They feel if X owes Y, maybe 1 lakh yen, he will put, yen is their currency, he will put it in a cover and hand it over to you. Even banks count, but put it in a cover and give it to you because they don't touching money. Businessmen always touch money, work for money, get money, spend that money, expand with that money, their businesses. So money handling exercise is not considered very pure in Japanese tradition. So merchants were the last class in the society. So it was samurais who were on top. That's the military class. Then farmers, then artisans. Artisans are what we call Vishwakarmas in India. Carpenters, construction workers, painters, house builders, industry structure builders, that one. And labor class was labor class only, like in English style. Anyway, society was divided during the medieval period, that is feudal period, that is called Tokugawa era, pre-Meiji period. That was many features also went into the modern period. And after World War I also, it prevailed. Even today in Japan, society, it is not very openly showing there were classifications or there were caste system, to put it in Indian language. There were outskirts, like in case of India, outside of the 4 main castes, a large community or communities existed. So in Japan too, a lot of people lived in slums. They were doing very, even non-human, not inhuman activities they were involved in, like removing the dead animals and then engaging in tanneries and all such work, cleaning. These works were done by outskirts people who lived outside of a village or a township. Outside, they had a hamlet. That is, what do you call it? A slum community, something like that. So they even continued in the modern period. They are even now continuing in Japan. But social mood and norms are such that they consider directly dealing with them is not very safe earlier days because of health reason. Now, because of differences that prevailed throughout the history of Japan, they are now also outskirts people, hamlet people they call, because they lived in a community area outside. They were designated. What their facilities are, how they are comparable to Indian societies or outside of the four main classes. Though we say it is a costless society we aim to or we are working for, still that system is prevailing in India. Similarly, in Japan, treatment of these outskirts are continuing and seclusion is there. For example, if a merchant class boy or a girl, or if a military background families boy or a girl, or whatever, artisan class, construction class, if there is a love and courtship affair between boys and girls of this community and the rest of the advanced community, if they decide to marry, even after the engagement, families, when they come to know they belong to outcast, that will be broken. So they don't encourage that. And even in regions of heavy industry complexes like Kobe, Kyoto area, Osaka area, there are strong presence of outcast people. They do conduct census exercises once in 10 years. And industrialists, they get to know easily because they only sponsor sometimes with government pay money for the census cost. They get to know who are these people, where do they live, what is their address, what is their photo during census. All that will be collected and stored. And a huge copy of registry is available in Osaka Business Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And this will be distributed to the industry association member industries, and they will see to it that these people not employed in their factories. This kind of discrimination, even today, is going on in Japanese society. This kind of practice is going on clandestinely, supported by both politics and businesses. So educationally, they will be backward. Socially, they will be backward. Economically, they are backward. But what is it economy that is driving them into in the present very, very contemporary, technologically, industrially, otherwise far advanced society like Japan? You will be shocked to know their population percentage, and you will be shocked to know about their movements. You may be shocked to know even the work type and occupations they are having today. I'll come to that, how government had noticed this, how government have evolved policies for their upliftment educationally, economically, later on, because that compares easily with India also launching many socio-economic policies to help the society, bring in and deliver social justice. Similarly, there also such exercises are going on. There are associations and federations of theirs, they call research group, and they are also bringing out their statistics. Both the statistics are clashing somewhere. But anyway, government, with all its intention, good intentions and political intentions, also partially, they are supporting policies to deliver some justice to the outcast people. That is one, but is not all. World War II, because of Japanese wrong decision and act of bombarding Pearl Harbor, in retaliation, the American Air Force dropped nuclear bombs both on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Nagasaki, industrial town, military industrial town, and naval headquarters, Hiroshima. And government's war machine, that is decision-making authority, was in Hiroshima. That is the reason why Americans targeted carpet bombing of these two cities. And loss of life, 252,000 people. That is 2.5 lakhs people. Little more than that, not in lakhs more. One. And destruction of industrial structure. And then because of the nuclear effect, the new people that were born are affected by that. They all you just cannot take a look at their faces. Such are the even second generation, third generation of nuclear bomb people are there. One thing I would like to bring to your notice, this is the right forum, is that recently, about 2 weeks ago, Nobel Prizes were declared for different distinct achievers in the world, including in academics, like physics, economics, etc., medical, etc. In case of Japan, this Hiroshima and Nagasaki nuclear bombed for their betterment, some of their next generation people now are very active. They have an association. They are fighting for their rights as a Japanese situation. That peace group in Japan is awarded Nobel Prize because they are continuously fighting for peace. They have achieved certain degree, and noticing this, Nobel Peace Prize was awarded this year to the Japanese peace group. I think this is a matter of great pride for the Japanese who are fighting for the freedom and upliftment of, or bringing parity to them with other mainstream Japanese society members, no matter which group they had belonged to before, is going on. It's a matter of pride for them. It's a matter of pride for Asia. It's also a matter of pride for the world, recognizing peace activists to be conferred with Nobel Prize. Anyway, this apart. So loss of industrial structure, loss of industrial capacity, and loss of economic growth, and loss of human lives across Japan was the major loss that during World War II, due to Japanese wrong decision, Japanese and American precise retaliation, Japanese had to lose everything. And now, after losing this, even if they recover later, there would be every chance of Japanese entering into causing another war, whatever scale be that. That was a major realization that America had. So America occupied Japan militarily, administratively, letting lot of things free, and even making a new constitution. 1945, with war being over, a new constitution was given to the Japanese. They call modern constitution, or they call post-war constitution. They were peace constitution also, it is called. Why peace constitution they call? Because Article 9 of Japanese constitution is related to peace. That it says, we shed war as an instrument of making peace, because they knew the experience of what causes war and what causes war effect to the society. So Americans by force entered as Article 9, peace aspects of that. We never make a decision to go to war. We never will have a military. They have now. I'll tell you later if necessary, if there is inquiry from any of you as to they prohibit military in the constitution, but why do they have military? That I think I'll take up later. Otherwise, given the time limitations, I may be losing some focus. So Article 9 is peace constitution. They say as an instrument of war, we would never retain the earlier class of military maintenance. And now we give up our defense right. Only for defense they will have to defend themselves if somebody attacks them. Even then, there is a security treaty with US that if others attack you, we will save you. So in that name, Americans are today having 47,000 of their military present in Japan, of which 27,000 are located in Okinawa. They commit a lot of frauds, and sometimes special court for American soldiers in Okinawa also exists to deliver justice. Anyway, so this peace constitution or new constitution or modern constitution or 1947 constitution, whatever you call, is in force even today. Only difference is Japanese constitution so far has not been amended even one time. This is a great matter for us to recognize and also appreciate that. See, hundreds of times Indian constitution have been amended. So unlike this experiment, Japan is an exception. Anyway, even new industrial policy was made by the Americans how to help Japan. All the military industries are gone. Only the consumer industries came in place. Like iron and steel was necessary for rebuilding the nation. So new sets of iron and steel policy was made by the government, and many of the private major sectors were invited to host industries with Japanese government assistance. One. Number two, textiles also improved because non-military society, that is post-World War II Japanese society, needed textile. With modernization, they needed new dress system, dress code. they did enter into that. New education system, American education system, although earlier it was European model, now World War II, it's American model. That many of them have MOUs with different countries in the world, including in India in some universities, and educational exchange of students, scholars, and even faculty are in place today because of the bilateral relations with India also and with US also with major emphasis. And now economy in Japan, post-World War, 52% of their industrial capacity was destroyed. So rebuilding that took really good time. Physical industrial structure must have been destroyed, but the human talent was not destroyed. This is a matter to be underlined. That is, human capacity, talent remained. So re-employing them, training them, placing them on jobs was easier. And by 1952, from 1945, that 7 years of American occupation has helped actually Japan to move away from a military, a feudal society, a warring society, to a peace society, to an economically progressive society, socially advanced society, educationally far qualitatively improved society. This achievement needs to be appreciated. Of course, as even in the departments of history that is being taught in Japan, how Japan so fast post-World War II from destruction returned to a major industrial complex of consumer goods industries. This is a matter one has to say hats off. Now, by 1964, there was a decision to hold. American occupation ended in 1952. And post that, all powers were transferred to the Japanese to make, because otherwise it would have been too much of expenditure, American powers to spend for another country. With seeing things all right, back on track for growth, Americans withdrew, except for the military part. Now there are a lot of exchanges going on between two countries. That is a separate issue. Now, 1964, there was a World Olympics site was Japan. Both Osaka and Tokyo were chosen to be event place. And Olympic sports held there was also open to Japan, an opportunity to showcase the sectors of their growth, the extent of their growth, the modernity, how fast they came back, and international media that was present in Japan to cover the events of Olympics 1964 also equally impartially covered in good proportion in the media about how Japan progressed after World War II and how the level at which they stayed at 1964. That was actually opening world knowledge towards what Japan is, how fast they have grown. See, 1945 to 1964 is just a matter of short 20 years. And they did that. Because one thing in economic history of any country, we notice later the modernization or economic development process begin, faster will be the results of the modernization. That is because you have access to new technology. That is a great advantage today. For example, India took how many years to economically really stage growth? That was in the American support to Japanese have helped it greatly. India had to on its own struggle. That is the reason for delay in India. That is the reason for quickness in Japan. One. And economic structure totally changed. And Americans made certain agreements because they were responsible for policy making and its implementation and observing in Japan after World War II during their presence of occupation, that is 45 to 52, they confidently left it to the care of Japan. And Japanese are very hard workers, very punctual on work. And they target first and they achieve it at any cost, even by overworking, by over-resource deployment in sectors. And now, the industries that have grown after World War II has different content. From the industries content, for actualization before war. Similarly, 1945 to 1964, it was different types of industry. Example, railway coach making, speeding up the coaches, making modern infrastructure, industries, road system, telecommunication, education, and social institutions. Through all government policies, they had changed. And they were fair, largely speaking. They were fair in distributing largesse to the society. There were no limitations in spending on education sector. Here we find shortage of funds in India. Any school of government or otherwise in a village to urban areas and centers in India, you find a lot of discrepancies between the system. Private sector, schools, colleges, universities doing much better today in India than the government ones. Even Mysore University or any university know how there is a fund crunch to invest more in education system. Anyway, this is a part. So returning to Japan, society, because of newer opportunities, newer education, the benefit was getting better jobs. Through human resources training on the job, there was a time, it's called zero unemployment growth, because traditionally, for last 30, 40 years, unemployment rate in Japan is below 2.5%. It is nothing actually compared to India's or any other countries' unemployment rate. Actually, in the 80s and 90s, very high growth phase. Then students after graduation, here we struggle, go from city to city, doors of different company to company in search of jobs. But in Japan, a student even before getting graduation degree certificate lands 3 or 4 jobs. Then problem is which one to choose. To the professors of university, companies write letter, send us 20 workers, send us 40 workers. Companies will try that. Being working hard, punctual, all being in nature, even integrity, they have a practice called long-term employment. Meaning, like in India, they don't hop from job to job very often. Today in private sector, you find people quitting jobs and joining another company just because consideration is higher salary. But in Japan, no. Salaries come actually rise every April 1, new financial year, both private and public sector. So in case of Japan, education has helped them, everyone having education, opportunity to get educated, gets job. But there is a wage discrimination. Example, a university graduate holding a job gets better salary than a high school leaver. A lady worker, university graduate, gets a better salary compared to a high school leaver of a girl. Even a man, technically qualified, like engineer, technology institute graduates, they get better placement, they also get tried. So, no unemployment, meaning full employment syndrome that prevailed in Japan throughout after post-war period, up to the 80s, 90s, is one phase. Now, transformation into high-tech society and functionally high-tech society, efficiently functioning high-tech society, delivering quality products in the society, has certain advantages and disadvantages. Like Indian educated engineer is so well-versed in case of software expertise acquisition. In case of Japan, the hardware expertise, they are running short of hardware expertise. You may be shocked to know, in the last 15 to 20 years, many Indian technicians have, for job opportunities, went to Japan and are working there. But Japanese society has certain features. Example, birth rate declining year after year. Not many children are born every year. The average age of average women cannot deliver more than 1.52 children, meaning that every family cannot have even minimum 2 children. because they would like to enjoy better economic status, better access, enjoying even better quality of life. So they don't have large families like in case of India. Often practice nowadays or habits among the women is not to marry at all. Why? The risk of sharing all resources with children, caring them, then education cost. No. In high society in Japan, the practice of educated women in better jobs today is not to marry, but continue as a single, enjoy life. Even many men are also of that type, but women are more in number. One. Number two, this means there will be a worker shortage in immediate future in Japan, especially pronounced in such sector as software engineering sector to servicing products efficiently, giving a good product, maybe from the industry side. For that, Japanese have capacity. But for software, they have shortage. So other Asians, basically meaning Chinese and Indians working. Even student visas who go there find easily jobs if they are good at this sector. So economic prosperity that Japanese society has improved, nearly unbeaten 10% plus annual economic age growth they have experienced from 1952 to 1970. 1973 gave them an oil shock, price rise, supply cut because of politics in Arab countries. So then they transformed normal industries, which were very highly dependent on petroleum. 98% they have to import from overseas. The rest is nuclear and electrical. So now in 2011, March and 11th, they had a triple accident, nuclear leakage in the Fukushima nuclear plant, earthquake, and tsunami. So still many people in that area have not recovered to the earlier stage of 2011. So there are many natural calamities in Japan. Of course, disaster management is much better. Disaster relief provision is much better. But lives lost have been minimized gradually because they built earthquake-proof buildings, structures in most of the private and the government buildings. Even the ones who are not earthquake-proof, they are ordering from the government to have a newer housing structure. There is a process going on so that you save lives. Loss of life is something which nobody likes. Japanese especially do not like. So there is a government measure to save lives this way. And there is, since a wave towards smaller family size, there is a future immediately, say in next 10 years or next 20, 25 years, there will be a major shortage of workforce in Japan. Now, how do they have to manage? Relax your immigration policies, invite more and more Asian and other students, because Asia has many less developed countries. So people there will be more anxious to go to Japan, work there, study there, whatever, jobs available easily. So social mix in Japan in the modern period, say up to 2000 was different. 2000 to till now is different. After next year, the 2025, there will be another shift of more foreigners. But when do they equal out? Foreigners present and Japanese nationals in that country, both equal number, unpredictable. It may not be more than 2060, 2075. That will happen. Not till then, it will not happen. But there will be free exchange of people. So more and more dependency on machinery, robotization. Japan is the largest country which has employed largest number of robots in the industrial manufacturing complexes. That is a different feature compared to many other European countries. So they are ahead in this. So they have realized the labor shortage problem that they will face in future. They have this way gone into that. One. Number two, artificial intelligence, we are talking in the first session, has been far higher extent in Japan than in India. India is now making a leap forward, but Japanese have done this much before. Even other economies in Asia, like South Korea, sometimes they are equal to Japanese in terms of AI deployment in both management, industries, and work. So humans totally replaced by AI is a distant feature, but it is gradually changing the numbers. So we find such a economically advanced society also socially backward and discriminated, small proportion, but it is a proportion. Many foreign researchers can find out, journalists know about it, foreigners know about it, but Japanese somehow do not like others to talk about their social discrimination. This community is called Buraku. That means hamlet people. Hamlet people means slum dwellers. And there are many labor class and less earning people, aged but not employed at this age. There are also that they have to be taken care. Though government is proudly sporting some policies like removing them from the major urban areas and putting them somewhere in a interior area where not many foreigners know, therefore they will not go there, they will not notice this, but that is present. The minority problem, that minority, when we say in Japan, it is basically Koreans. And the local minorities, when we say domestic minorities, that is the Japanese themselves, outcast people. So these two are features. But one major paying job for people in Japan who have no education, but otherwise who had difficulties, is driving a taxi, owning a taxi. Because all Japanese look more or less similar, yellow-skinned. Unlike in India, people in North, people in Northeast, people in South, we look differently, right? In case of Japan, all of them look similar, natives. So anybody easily cannot make out which social class he belongs to. So when they drive taxi, and taxis are most profitable business in Japan, especially in urban areas, and there is shortage of taxi services. And more these socially discriminated people are getting loans from banks, owning a taxi, becoming taxi driver, easily sometime earning more than professors. That is the income differences in different sectors in Japanese economy. So Japanese society, historically what had been there was different up to Meiji period. What from Meiji was ended in Meiji's, and then World War II has seen
Akila? ಮುಗಿತಾ? ಏನಂದ್ರು?
ಏನು ಅಂದಿಲ್ಲ. ಮುಗೀತು. ಅವ್ರು ಎಕ್ಸಿಟ್ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ ಅಷ್ಟೇ, ಅಡ್ಮಿನಿಸ್ಟ್ರೇಷನ್. ಏನು ಇಲ್ಲ ಇದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ, ಮುಗ್ದಿದೆ ಇಲ್ಲ.
Sir, you are audible and visible.
Ha. Tell me. Session is over.
Over, sir.
Okay.
Can I switch off or?
No, sir. If someone is having any doubts, they will ask you.
I see.
For the clarifications.
Okay,
the session is already completed, and friends, you will have any doubt, you are free to ask, sir.
Yes.
No doubt, sir.
Sir, this is Dr. Mannapalli Gundala. I'm assistant professor in history from NEHU.
Nehu.
Yes, sir. Northeastern Hill University, Meghalaya.
Yeah, I know. Guwahati.
Yeah. So I have one doubt, sir. According to after the Second World War, and where there was a competition between the countries, why the American government was choosing only the small Asian tigers to develop into new existence economically?
It is easy to deal with. Do you think in case of India it would have been possible? different
No,
states within the country
they
would be.
chosen where the people were very less and where the strategic points were there related to the international trade.
No, not only that. They were familiar with these countries before war.
Okay.
Many European countries, East Asia conducted large trade. Those days, it was navy or it was cargo. It was ships through which the trade was done, global trade. Even, for example, Russian goods or what Russia gets or what Russia sends, it is all through the ocean. So look at the map and see the southern part of Russia.
Yes.
What comes? You have Japan, Korea, China, Southeast Asia, and Indian Ocean, right? And then into the Pacific. That otherwise it goes towards America. In between, if you move your ship upwards, you have Europe, right? Rest of Asia. So navigation, it was only since through the ships. It was possible only in this route. So from east to west and west to east, it was only the navies that were going around, both for war and for commerce. And each European country, which was a major trade power, US also included as a Western bloc, only traded through the sea.
Yeah, surprisingly, it was happening in 1950s to 70s, where rather than the economic aid, they transferred the technology. That was only the surprising thing in American part.
No, more than America, it was Europe where the technology advancement happened first.
Yes.
To be more particular, in engineering industry, it is Germany within Europe.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Asian side, I don't think technological development had been experienced greatly, unless you see a case with partnership with Europe, basically.
But America was transferred their technology to these Asian tigers. So that was only
because they had experience of dealing with them before. It was not new for them. Where British were strong in India, for example, do you think at that time Americans could have come easily to India? Not possible.
No.
So smaller countries where they were easy, they were familiar with, they had been dealing with, had been their targets, and they achieved easily. But later on, the places where they have been losing also is from smaller countries, right? Gradually wait for 2 more years and then see the Ukraine, how it will change. It was because of small country, Americans tried, now they failed. Look at Vietnam, what happened in 1975, Vietnam War. Americans had to withdraw finally. It is a small country. It was divided then, South Vietnam, North Vietnam. Now only one together, right? So I think US experience is different, European experience different. Within Europe, each country's experience difference. Therefore, as recipient country of technology, even in Asia, our experiences remain greatly different.
That was not happened in the part of Korea only, but the rest of the countries were united.
No, Korea, you see, Korea, it is the case of Japan actually.
Yeah.
They were familiar with them from 1910 to 1945. Most industries were owned by the Japanese. And country was acquired actually. It's called occupied up to 1945. So in post-World War, when Japanese technology in Japan became weak, they want to transfer it in the name of transferable technology. They will apply into production process newer ones. Older ones, they will be sending it. Technology transfer, they call. So to Korea, they sent it. Wherever Japanese today are strong in industry, tomorrow Korea will be same. Not big gap. Both electronics and automobiles. You see, these were the major two features. After 1980s, Japan became quite strong. Now, of course, semiconductors, etc. There is a war going on between major countries now for semiconductor dominance. So Korea next to Japan. But in quality terms, Korean product, Japanese product have difference. But in terms of products, they are similar.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Now,
Hello,
Krishnagiri is waiting, I think.
yes, sir. Thank you. Kaja Muidin, assistant professor from Krishnagiri, sir.
Yes.
I have two
You are very active academician, I can make out.
Thank you, sir, for the compliments.
Yeah, please.
Two direct questions, sir. One is who headed the American administration, which military commanders are in Japan in the post-Second War period? That is question number one. And question number two, what is the logic behind the clarion call among the Japanese Asia for the Asians, sir?
That is now a gone concept, Asia for Asians. Even Indonesia, they talked about. Even Indians joined that call. That never cut any ice. That is a failure, because in a world today, the extent to which globalization or interactions between is taking place in economy, in society, in administration, in security, every sector, you cannot say Asia for Asians, Europe for Europeans, America for Americans. Don't you think tomorrow the displacement of people present in different countries and industries owned by different country people, there will be a huge quake or tsunami or displacement? So today, Asia for Asians concept is dead, I think. It is not valid. It is not valid.
Not today. During the
immediate post-war period, it was a call, because they thought it is all in Asia bad thing happening because of the Western people. So they should not interfere in our internal affairs. We should manage our own. Asia for Asians. That was the call. It was an attempted call, but it was a failed call because not many could take it. Some people, for reasons of politics, did work out, regional politics. And otherwise, I think today it is an invalid concept.
Sir, I am Sridhar Naik from Mangalore University. After the Second World War, the world was divided into two parts. One was democratic, another one was communism. And
Socialism.
Third one was particularly Nehru introduced non-alignment.
Yes.
And particularly after the globalization, liberalization, privatization, these blocks were disappeared, or once again it continued to harm the world, because on the one side we know that the Palestine, on another side we know that in the countries of Israel the war was going on. It is harm to the world, yes or no?
See, non-alignment concept, of course, Egypt, India, Indonesia, together giving a call, 5 countries initially. It is very relevant today, though, as a, say the principles of Panchsheel, etc., that is in Indian foreign policy context. Non-alignment, we were the champions, we were the founders. And in many cases, we have practiced and we have won. For example, last week conclusion between India and China to withdraw from the borders, each other's force, and redeploy only patrolling is a good result. I think it is thanks to India's policy of non-alignment. And we are not the first users of nuclear weapons, even if we have capability to make it. Whereas Pakistan, they also hide when we attempted that Pokhran 2, very next day, Ghazni, they have experimented, meaning that non-alignment as an ideal solution, as an ideal policy, is suitable to many countries. As you mentioned, because communism and democracy were the two major blocks in the world, India did not join any bloc. That was an appropriate time to find this concept of non-alignment, which rather in between were quite slow, because now it is multi-polar system which is valid in the world. The earlier blocks have gone. Earlier blocks have gone with the mostly ending of Soviet Union. And then I think, though in the name of socialism, China, North Korea, Russia, they follow certain earlier ideologies, but still they also have realized today in the world, it is multi-polar level or multipolar system that needs to be practiced. And it is in practice because there is a huge extent of exchange between many countries and two countries going on. Bilateral and multilateral are the mantra of today. And no country is left behind. If you do not want to join the bandwagon, you will not be able to derive the benefits. Therefore, non-alignment is valid to resolve bilateral or bicontinental issues. Bicontinental, I say, because most of the founders or all founders of non-alignment movement were Asians. So they do practice. But in spite of this, problems going on in Ukraine and Russia as a war and between Israel and so-called Lebanon or Palestine or Gaza, even Syria, Iran. Yes, these are the regional things. See, world knew when, even 10 years before, when from Soviet Union, 15 countries separated and formed a new bloc. There, I mean, independent countries, newly independent countries, they were called NICs. And Ukraine being the immediate border for Russia, and Ukraine from Central Asia being much closer to former so-called East European to the Europe touching and bordering. So this NATO is actually expanding from the 5-member country to there are 34 member countries. They wanted to include or involve Ukraine, which was meaning NATO at the border of Russia. So this was the issue. Even 8-10 years before, people did realize someday in future it's going to be a problem. So it has become a problem now for 2 years. And finally, it is dialogue. It is some kind of non-aligned movement. It is some kind of realization and diplomacy that will take you to the shore. West Asia, I think Palestinians being without home for years and years, centuries. And finally, there was a place marked for them. And even that Israel want to drive. Where will you drive Palestinians from Gaza Strip? Even Gaza is becoming shrunk. Egypt had housed so many Palestinians from Gaza area after displacement. And those who were in Syria were gradually ruled out. And it is a movement for homeland. Israel was founded in 1945. And they claim they have a history of 3,000 years. God wished that this piece of land should be ours. So God has sent us here. This is Israel believes. And at the band of whom they are doing US. Maximum defense and security and military industry in the US, investments are by the Israelis. And so if US cannot easily distance Israel because they will withdraw the investment, then US business will be tough. And for any Israel political, geographical, expansionary approach, US simply keeps silent. Often, in case of Israel, Iraq, for example, US first acted and then asked the United Nations to pass a resolution, 1565. So US support to anything that Israel does or their partners do is great. So meaning international politics has many loopholes, many screws that can be tightened, that can be loosened, that can be properly paced. So international politics is different, international relations is different, international development is different, international movements are different. So given all this, I think UN is ineffective because it has not reformed since it began. Situation in world when UN was formed was different. And situation today in the world is different. So UN is a misfit for today's world as a instrument for providing solution to problem or resolving a crisis. So unless UN expands, countries like Japan, India, and other, maybe 1 or 2 African countries, 1 or 2 Latin American countries are provided membership, there is not going to be any justice delivered by UN to the crisis, whether Asia, anywhere. So now UN reforms takes precedence, but US and other vested powers do not like UN Security Council to be expanded. So we, India, also keep demanding expansion of that. That becomes a forum which everyone proudly can utilize. Number of members, see, close to 200 in UN. But how many problems do exist in different regions today? All are members over there. But UN has a responsibility. They are shirking their responsibility. I think UN reforms we should support. Peace in West Asia we should support. Peace in Ukraine, Russia region we have to support. And peace everywhere. Remember one of my first statement in first lecture that threat of war in any place is direct threat for peace everywhere. UN's role becomes dominant, but they are toothless. This is how I can respond.
Thank you, sir. Thank you a lot.